There was no dramatic announcement from the Vatican today. No new treaty was signed. No ceasefire was declared. And yet, a meeting inside the Apostolic Palace may tell us something important about the direction of Pope Leo XIV's pontificate. On August 20th, 2026, Lebanese President Joseph Aoun met Pope Leo XIV at the Vatican. The meeting focused on the difficult implementation of a United States, Israel, and Lebanon trilateral framework agreement signed on June 26. The agreement was intended to stabilize southern Lebanon and create a path toward lasting peace. But here is the crucial point. The Vatican did not describe the agreement as a solved problem. Instead, the Holy See said it has serious concerns about the difficulties in implementing it. That changes the meaning of today's meeting. This was not a victory ceremony. It was a conversation about what happens when a peace framework exists on paper, but the reality on the ground remains unstable. After meeting Pope Leo, President Aoun spoke with Vatican Secretary of State Cardinal Pietro Parolin and Archbishop Paul Richard Gallagher. According to the Vatican, the discussions covered the implementation of the framework and Lebanon's broader situation. Aoun asked for continued Vatican support for Lebanon's position. His government has called for an end to attacks affecting civilians, infrastructure, and villages in southern Lebanon, withdrawal from occupied territories, reconstruction, and the return of displaced people. Those demands reveal the human problem beneath the diplomacy. A document can be signed in Washington. Leaders can make commitments, but none of that automatically rebuilds a damaged home, brings a displaced family back, or gives a community confidence that tomorrow will be safer than today. And that is where Pope Leo XIV's role becomes especially interesting. The Pope does not command armies. He does not control Hezbollah. He does not govern Lebanon or Israel. The Vatican cannot impose a military settlement. What it can do is use diplomacy, moral authority, and international attention to keep peace, human dignity, and the protection of civilians at the center of the conversation. That matters because southern Lebanon remains deeply unsettled. Vatican news reports that attacks have continued despite a temporary ceasefire, reached with Israel on April 17th. Israel says its military operations target Hezbollah infrastructure and personnel, while Beirut continues to condemn Israeli operations. Those competing claims should not be treated as settled fact, but the Vatican's own statement makes one thing clear. Implementation of the peace framework remains difficult, and Pope Leo already has a personal connection to this story. In late 2025, he traveled to Lebanon during his first apostolic journey as Pope. During that visit, he spoke about peace, reconciliation, and the importance of Lebanon's Christian communities remaining part of the country's future. That background gives today's meeting another layer. For Pope Leo, Lebanon is not simply another item on a diplomatic schedule. It is a country he has visited, people he has met, and a society whose Christian presence he has repeatedly defended. Lebanon has a unique place in the Middle East. Christians have deep historical roots there, but political instability, economic hardship, and regional conflict have contributed to uncertainty about the future. Pope Leo has stressed that Christians should not be forced to abandon their homeland. So when the Vatican talks about peace in Lebanon, it is also talking about whether communities can remain, rebuild, and live together. And today's meeting comes alongside another Vatican message that reveals the broader direction of Leo's thinking. On August 20th, the Holy See released Pope Leo's message for the 2026 World Day of Prayer for the Care of Creation. In that message, he connected war with human suffering and environmental destruction, emphasizing that the consequences of conflict extend far beyond the battlefield. At first, that may sound like a separate subject. It is not. For Leo, peace is increasingly presented as something larger than the absence of fighting. War separates families, destroys communities, damages the environment, deepens fear, and makes ordinary life harder to rebuild. That is why Lebanon matters. It brings diplomacy, security, religion, displacement, reconstruction, and human dignity into the same story. And there is another important detail. The Vatican did not claim that today's meeting produced a breakthrough. There was no announcement of a new ceasefire, no new peace treaty, no claim that the conflict had ended. Instead, the Holy See expressed support for efforts to advance the existing framework while openly acknowledging the obstacles. That may sound less dramatic than a major diplomatic announcement, but it can be more revealing. Real diplomacy often moves through difficult periods when progress is measured not by headlines, but by whether communication remains possible. And the Vatican is keeping that channel open. President Aoun's appeal for continued Holy See support also shows why the Vatican still matters to Lebanon beyond religion. The Holy See has diplomatic relationships across the world and can raise humanitarian concerns while framing political questions around human dignity and peace. But influence has limits. The Vatican can encourage dialogue. It can support negotiations. It can speak for civilians and displaced families. It can remind governments that strategic decisions have human consequences. It cannot force the parties to implement an agreement. That is the unanswered question now. Can diplomatic commitments become real security on the ground? Can displaced people return? Can damaged communities rebuild? Can Lebanon preserve the social and religious diversity that has made it so important in the region? No one can answer those questions today, but the Pope's involvement shows that the Vatican does not intend to step away from them. And this is where today's story connects to the larger question of what kind of Pope Leo XIV is becoming. His international diplomacy is increasingly centered on a consistent idea. Peace must be connected to human dignity. That same principle has appeared in his statements about the Middle East, including his recent appeal concerning violence affecting Palestinians in the West Bank and his support for a two-state solution. It also appears in his approach to Lebanon. A pope who speaks about peace cannot ignore civilians. A pope who defends human dignity cannot ignore displacement. A pope concerned about Christian communities cannot ignore the conditions that cause people to leave their homeland. And a pope who speaks about creation cannot ignore the consequences of war. These issues are connected, so today's meeting should not be understood as Pope Leo solving Lebanon's crisis. It is something more realistic. He is keeping the Vatican engaged. He is acknowledging that a peace framework exists but is difficult to implement, and he is placing the moral and diplomatic weight of the Holy See behind efforts to turn that framework into something more meaningful. That distinction matters, because for leaders, an agreement can be a political achievement. For ordinary people, an agreement only matters if life changes afterward. A family can return home, a child can go to school without fear, a village can rebuild, a church can remain open, a community can imagine a future instead of planning its escape. That is where peace is ultimately tested. Not inside the apostolic palace, not at a diplomatic table, but in the daily lives of people who have spent too long living with uncertainty. Pope Leo XIV cannot create that peace alone. But today's meeting shows that he is willing to keep using the Vatican's diplomatic and moral influence to pursue it. And the next test will not be what leaders say after the meeting. It will be what happens on the ground. If the framework can be implemented, if civilians become safer, if displaced families can return, and if Lebanon's communities can rebuild, today's diplomacy may eventually look like one important step in a much larger process. If implementation continues to fail, the Vatican's concern will become even more significant. That is why August 20th matters. The headline is simple: Pope Leo XIV met Lebanon's president. The deeper story is much harder. a peace agreement exists. The Vatican supports its purpose. But the path from paper to peace remains uncertain. And Pope Leo XIV is now standing in the middle of that difficult space, not as a military power, but as a voice trying to keep diplomacy, human dignity, and hope alive. There is no guarantee that his influence will be enough, but there is also no question that Lebanon has become an important test of how this Pope understands the meaning of peace. Because peace is not proven when leaders announce it. Peace is proven when ordinary people can finally live differently. When families can return, when children can learn without fear, when communities can rebuild, and when people no longer have to choose between leaving their homeland and remaining in danger. That is what Pope Leo XIV's message ultimately asks the world to consider. Not simply whether an agreement has been signed, but whether the people who need peace can finally feel it. And that is the question worth watching next. Do you believe Pope Leo XIV can play a meaningful role in helping bring lasting peace to Lebanon? Or is the crisis ultimately beyond the Vatican's influence? If you want reliable, carefully researched updates on Pope Leo XIV, the Vatican, and the major developments shaping the Catholic Church, stay with this channel.